Welcome, viewers, to the Historia Prime Channel, where we embark on a journey through history to shed light on the persistent realities shaping our world today. In this episode, we confront a sobering truth: the enduring legacy of systemic structures that continue to propagate financial inequality, disproportionately affecting the Black community. For centuries, the economic landscape of America has been marred by a dark history of exploitation and discrimination. From the transatlantic slave trade to the era of Jim Crow laws, Black individuals and communities have been systematically marginalized, their labor exploited, and their opportunities constrained. Despite strides towards equality, the vestiges of these injustices linger on, woven into the very fabric of our society. Today, we confront the uncomfortable truth that the economic disparities between races persist, with white households continuing to amass wealth at a disproportionate rate compared to their Black counterparts. But what lies at the heart of this disparity? It's not merely a matter of individual effort or merit, but rather the systemic barriers erected and reinforced over generations. Discriminatory lending practices, unequal access to education and employment, and a myriad of other factors contribute to a cycle of poverty that seems insurmountable. Yet, even in the face of adversity, there is resilience. Communities across the nation are rising, demanding justice, and challenging the status quo. Grassroots movements, led by activists and advocates, are amplifying the voices of those marginalized by the system and pushing for meaningful change. As we delve into this complex and nuanced topic, we must confront our complicity in perpetuating these systems of oppression. By acknowledging the uncomfortable truths of our history and present-day realities, we can begin to dismantle the structures that uphold inequality and strive toward a more just and equitable society for all. The scars of history run deep, leaving an indelible mark on the economic fortunes of the Black community in America. To truly comprehend the present state of affairs, we must embark on a journey through the annals of time, revisiting the dark chapters of slavery, segregation, and institutionalized discrimination that have shaped the course of history. The legacy of slavery, with its brutal exploitation of Black labor, laid the foundation for the economic prosperity of the nation, while simultaneously shackling generations of Black individuals in chains of bondage. The wealth amassed from centuries of unpaid labor formed the bedrock of America's economy, yet Black individuals were systematically denied access to the fruits of their own labor. Following the abolition of slavery, the era of Reconstruction held promise for emancipated slaves seeking to carve out a new life for themselves. However, the promise of freedom was swiftly overshadowed by the rise of Jim Crow laws, which enshrined segregation and disenfranchisement into the fabric of Southern society. These discriminatory policies extended beyond the realm of social interaction, permeating every facet of economic life. Black individuals were relegated to menial jobs with paltry wages, denied access to educational opportunities, and systematically excluded from home ownership and wealth-building initiatives. Even as the civil rights movement of the mid-20th century sought to dismantle the legal barriers to equality, the legacy of centuries of oppression continued to cast a long shadow over the economic prospects of Black Americans. Discriminatory lending practices, redlining, and employment discrimination persisted, further entrenching the cycle of poverty and perpetuating economic inequality. Today, the echoes of history reverberate through our society, reminding us of the deep-seated injustices that continue to shape our economic landscape. The wealth gap between Black and white households persists, reflecting not only disparities in income and employment, but also systemic barriers to wealth accumulation that have been centuries in the making. To address these entrenched inequalities, we must confront the uncomfortable truths of our past and take decisive action to dismantle the systemic structures that perpetuate them. This requires not only individual introspection, but also collective mobilization to advocate for policies that promote equity, justice, and opportunity for all. In doing so, we can begin to heal the wounds of history and forge a path towards a more equitable society, where every individual has the opportunity to thrive regardless of race, ethnicity, or background. The systematic barriers to economic advancement faced by Black individuals and communities throughout history are deeply entrenched and multifaceted. From the horrors of slavery, where Black labor was exploited and their economic agency stripped away, to the era of Jim Crow laws, which institutionalized segregation and denied Black people access to vital resources, the impact of these injustices cannot be overstated. slavery's legacy continues to cast a long shadow over the economic prospects of Black Americans. For centuries, Black individuals were denied the right to own property, accumulate wealth, or pursue economic independence. Instead, their labor was forcibly extracted without compensation, laying the foundation for the economic prosperity of others while perpetuating their own impoverishment. The end of slavery did not herald an era of economic liberation for Black Americans. Instead, it gave rise to new forms of oppression and exploitation. Jim Crow laws, backed by the full force of the state, enforced racial segregation and denied Black people access to essential services, education, and employment opportunities. These laws not only relegated Black individuals to the margins of society, but also entrenched a system of economic inequality that persists to this day. Despite the hard-fought victories of the civil rights movement and the passage of legislation aimed at dismantling segregation and discrimination, the disparities in wealth between white and Black households remained stark. White households continue to possess significantly more wealth on average, a testament to the enduring legacy of systemic racism and economic injustice. The persistence of these disparities is a stark reminder that civil rights legislation alone is not enough to address the deep-rooted inequalities that have been woven into the fabric of our society. It requires a concerted effort to dismantle the systemic barriers that hinder the economic advancement of Black communities, including discriminatory lending practices, unequal access to education and employment, and the enduring effects of historical injustices. Ultimately, achieving economic equity requires a commitment to addressing the root causes of inequality and creating pathways to economic opportunity for all. It demands a reckoning with our nation's history of racial oppression and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths. Only then can we begin to build a more just and equitable society where every individual, regardless of race, has the opportunity to thrive and prosper. It's not just about historical injustices, it's about ongoing systemic issues. From discriminatory lending practices to unequal access to quality education and employment opportunities, the cycle of poverty is perpetuated. Yet, amidst adversity, there is resilience. Across the nation, communities are mobilizing, demanding change, and advocating for economic justice. Let's delve deeper into the importance of knowledge, empowerment, and collective action in rewriting the narrative of economic inequality. As we draw to a close on today's exploration, it's crucial to recognize that knowledge serves as the cornerstone of empowerment. By confronting the uncomfortable truths embedded within our history and society, we lay the foundation for meaningful change and progress. Understanding the systemic structures that perpetuate economic inequality is not only an act of awareness, but also a catalyst for action. Armed with knowledge, we are better equipped to challenge the status quo, advocate for justice, and strive towards a future where economic prosperity knows no racial bounds. But empowerment does not end with awareness, it extends to action. It requires a commitment to dismantling the systemic barriers that hinder the economic advancement of marginalized communities. It demands advocacy for policies and initiatives that promote equity, justice, and opportunity for all. Furthermore, empowerment is a collective endeavor. It requires solidarity and collaboration across communities, regardless of race or background. By standing together, amplifying marginalized voices, and advocating for systemic change, we can rewrite the script of history and build a more inclusive and equitable society. So, as we bid farewell to this episode of Historia Prime Channel, let us carry forward the lessons learned and the insights gained. Let us continue to engage, educate, and empower ourselves and others to confront injustice and strive towards a brighter future for generations to come. Thank you for joining us on this journey. If you found today's discussion insightful and thought-provoking, we invite you to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Together, let's rewrite history and pave the way for a more just and equitable world.